Hi, I'm Azim Sharp, founder and CEO of Leaf Credit Repair, author of the Ultimate Credit Repair Guide, a certified FICO Pro, and I am a national speaker. I've been on several radio shows to talk about the topic of how to legally repair your credit, how to protect your credit, and how to build credit. And basically what I do is I help people legally repair, rebuild, and boost their credit scores. I've been doing that for about 7 years now. I come from a real estate background. And I also, based on what I do with credit repair, it helps people to cut their monthly costs, to save more cash, and enjoy more, stress less, and get the credit they deserve. Because credit is the key to really living the financial life that you want to, or the lifestyle that you want. Um, so I'm going to, in this video, I'm going to go over some very important things if you've been dealing with debt collectors calling you over the phone, harassing you. I'm going to go over how to legally stop debt collectors from pursuing you. Also, the first thing you should do when contacted by a debt collector, if they call you by phone, call you at work on your cell phone, because a lot of people make a lot of mistakes that ends up costing them thousands of dollars. And there are ways to legally avoid paying that debt. Also going to go over what you should never say over the phone, what not to say to them over the phone. This is information that's going to help you. So please pay very close attention. I try to have on all of my videos a very relaxed atmosphere, as just as you and I are we're having a face-to-face conversation. That's it. Take this information and utilize it. Use it for your good. And also I'm going to go over steps to get debt legally removed from your credit without paying a dime. I'm going to show you how to legally do that. And this is all based off of information that I've used for my own clients, not off of speculation or something I just read in the book and I don't really know if it works or not. Again, I've been doing this for 7 years. I've helped thousands of people repair their credit, people who own homes now that before they became my client, they didn't own a home, or people who just needed help with their credit. So let's jump right into it. I remember I've gone through the same situation with dealing with debt collectors, receiving harassing calls from creditors. You know that feeling when you never want to answer block calls, being stressed out over debt, and not knowing how I was going to pay it. I didn't know how I was going to pay a lot of the debt back. And it's a horrible feeling to be stressed out over debt. So I'm hoping that this video is a blessing to somebody. It gives you some information that you can really use, and I know I've taken the time to put this together, so I know you'll get a lot out of it. Okay, so with me, just my own personal backstory real quick. This is not about me. I just want to let you know who I am, what I'm about, and what I do. After hundreds of hours of studying consumer protection laws, when my credit was really jacked up after the real estate market, I repaired my own credit. And then afterwards, I started my own company to help other people because I saw what I did for myself and for my wife. I was like, wow, there was just much information that I learned that is not really available to the general public, and you don't know what's true and what's accurate. So I said, you know what, this information that I learned, I want to now take it to start a business and help other people. I learned what debt collectors can and can't do, because a lot of times we feel pressured. We don't want the phone calls. We don't want to be harassed, so we automatically make arrangements to pay them. And I'm going to let you know that there's ways that you can legally not pay those debt collectors, because a lot of them buy that debt and they don't go about collecting that debt the right way legally. So, and I learned how to legally stop debt collectors. So, and that information that I learned over the years, and it took me years, I'm going to share that information with you now in this video. If you don't know your rights, you don't know if they're being violated. So it's important for you to know what your rights are. If you don't know your rights, you waste money paying things you're not obligated to pay. Again, most people think that, hey, if it's my debt and I know I defaulted on it, I have to pay it. But what most people don't realize is that once that debt is sold to a debt collector or a collection agency, now that collection agency purchased that debt with a risk involved, and they purchased it for pennies on a dollar. And there's things that they have to do to comply with collecting that debt. And if they don't legally, they can't collect it. I'm going to jump into some very good information in this video and give you some information that's really going to shock you. And you live with unnecessary stress and fear if you don't know your rights. So it's important to know what your rights are. Know what you should say, what you shouldn't say, what you can and you can't do. So that's very important. Most people would be surprised to know how much power you have under the FDCPA. The FDCPA stands for Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. That is a federal law. They don't realize that paying debt will not remove it from your credit. I talk to people oftentimes who say, hey, I just paid off my debt. I just paid off my collections. And that's the last thing that you want to do. Sometimes you'll have debt that's about to expire, and now that you made a payment, you have just reinstated the debt, and the statute of limitations now starts over. So you want to be careful in what you do. After you pay debt, it remains on credit for 7 more years. So it's important that you know that. Some people think that, hey, after I pay it, it's going to be removed. Or I talk to people who are referred, and they'll say, hey, I just finished paying off my debt. Why is it still on my credit? Well, just because you pay it does not mean that it is going to be removed from your credit. So actually paying it is the wrong thing to do. We're going to go over some very important strategies in this video of what you can do and what you should do. Again, you don't just want to run paying off debt. That's the wrong thing. So you want to follow closely the steps that I'm going to give you in this video. So a debt collector is not allowed to threaten to take action they have no intention of taking, okay? Or you can file a lawsuit against them. Again, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. They're not allowed to contact you at work if you tell them you're not allowed such calls, so you have to let them know that. And if they continue to do that, that's grounds for a lawsuit. And they can't call you at unreasonable hours. They're not supposed to. I forget the technical, I don't know if it's after 7, but again, I'll supply you with that information, but they are restricted in the hours that they can call you. They can't call you 5 a.m. in the morning, or they can't even threaten to tell you that they're going to call you every hour on the hour. And don't just offer them up payment right away. That's something that you don't do. Again, I'm going to give you some very good information. I want you to take notes, write it down, so that you have this information. They also can't threaten to call you every day. They're not supposed to do that. They can't threaten criminal charges or punishment. That's a violation of the FDCPA, which stands for Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. And they are not allowed to tell you that they're going to jail you or that you're going to go to jail. Debt collectors use all types of tactics when it comes to collecting debt, things to get you to pay, because they realize that most consumers, they just don't know what their rights are. But you don't want to fall for their tricks. So when a debt collector contacts you by phone or mail, they're required to do the following. They're required to tell you they are a debt collector. They must tell you that. They are required also to tell you that any information you give will be used to collect the debt. So be very careful of what you say over the phone. Again, you're not obligated to take their calls. You're not obligated to say certain things over the phone. I'm going to go into detail about what you should say, what you shouldn't say, and the first action that you should take when a debt collector contacts you. Within 5 days of contacting you, they must send you information in writing that includes the following, and this is very important. The amount of debt, okay? They are to include the name of creditor, okay, who the original creditor is, the statement that the debt is assumed to be valid unless you dispute it in 30 days. So they're required to give you this in writing. Most of them don't go through this because most consumers never request this information. They don't ask for the information because they don't know to ask, but I'm giving you this information to empower you to know what to do when a debt collector contacts you. Again, you don't want to just ignore the debt. You want to make sure that the debt collector can validate the debt. Also include statement, this is what you request as well, statement that if you decide to submit a written dispute within 30 days, they'll provide proof. They're supposed to include that in the statement. Also, a statement that says upon your written request within 30 days, they'll provide you with the name and address of original creditor. Okay, that's important that they include that. And if they don't supply you with that information, you can sue if they don't provide the proper information. You want to make sure that the debt collector can actually validate the debt. Okay. The first thing that you do, so let's say it's Friday and a debt collector calls you and they tell you that you owe, and this is the first time that you've ever heard from this debt collector. The first thing that you do is you demand validation of the debt. That's your right under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Okay. And so then they have 30 days to write. You have 30 days to write to them and request that they validate the debt. So even if, let's say, a couple of days go by and you don't get around to it, just make sure that you don't go past the 30-day mark and not request a validation of the debt. You want to make sure and I'm going to go over that in this video too, what you have to know what proper debt validation is. Proper debt validation is not your name and your information on their letterhead. That's not proper debt validation. I'm going to go over what proper debt validation is. I'm going to just let you in on a little secret. Probably 99% of the time, most debt collectors cannot properly validate a debt because when they purchase debt, they buy debt in bulk. So they don't get the required documentation that they need to legally to be able to collect that debt. Okay, so debt collectors, they prey on the consumer being ignorant or not knowledgeable, and this is not to call someone, ignorant. Of course, means just to not know. They just they prey on those that do not understand and know what their rights are. But after this video, you're going to know what your rights are. You're going to know how to deal with debt collectors. And then you're going to share this information with as many people as you possibly can. So that way they're not bombarded and stressed out over debt. So that's important to know. What to request from the debt collector. You want the name and address of the original creditor. You want a copy of the judgment regarding the debt and evidence that supports the debt in writing. You want that in writing, and you want a copy of the original contract. That's important. You also want a complete accounting statement of your payments with interest and fees. This is important because most debt collectors are not going to have this information. You want a complete accounting statement of your payments with interest and the fees associated with that debt. Okay, so legally they have to give this to you. If they don't provide you with this, then legally they have to cease collecting the debt. They can't contact you anymore until they provide it, and most of them can't. Okay, so this is important information for you to know. Again, you don't want to just accept your name and your information on their letterhead as proof that you owe the debt, because that's not proper debt validation. So it's also important, remind the debt collector that under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they're not permitted to pursue collection until they send you the requested info. That's important for you to understand and know. They can't. So they're not expecting you to know this information. They think that, when they buy debt, they know that there's going to be a very small percentage of people that understand and know this information and know what their rights are. Don't think just because you defaulted on a debt, and I'm not telling you to just take out loans and never pay anybody. I'm not saying that at all. But understand that there are laws in place that protect you, the consumer, that even if you default, there are certain guidelines that the debt collector has to follow. And those guidelines protect you. And if they don't follow the guidelines, then they can't collect the debt. If the debt collector cannot or will not provide validation of debt, legally they can't collect from you. If they attempt, you can sue. I'm going to show you how you go about suing if they fail to comply with this, how you can actually legally win money from them. I've had clients to do this, people who are not my clients that I know of who have sued debt collectors. I've sued debt collectors in the past, and you can win, but they're not expecting you to take any action. They anticipate and they wait on most people just not answering the phone, which is something you don't have to do, ignoring the letters in the mail, waiting until you get a judgment, waiting until they start levying your account, garnishing your wages until you want to take action. Don't wait until it gets to that point to say, hey, we get people that call us sometime and say, hey, I talked to you 4 months ago. They're garnishing my wages now. What can you do? Well, hey, I talked to you 4 months ago. Don't wait. Don't wait until it gets that far. It's just like a disease, or, you want to catch it before it spreads throughout your body. You want to catch it early. Under the FDCPA, you aren't required to talk to the debt collector. You're not required to take their calls, discuss anything with them, and you're not required to answer your phone when they call. You're not. If you decide that you want to talk to them one time to get the proper information or to make sure they can validate the debt, fine, do that. But you're not required to take their call every day or answer whenever they call. You're also not required to answer any questions they ask you. You're not required to discuss any private info. You're not required to acknowledge you owe any money. Again, you don't want to say that over the phone. All phone calls with most debt collectors pretty much are recorded. And once you admit to owing the debt, again, don't take out of the equation that you might have defaulted on a debt, or you had a car that was repossessed, or a credit card that you didn't pay. Take that out of the equation. Again, now there are legal rights that you have that they have to follow in order to be able to collect that debt. Because remember, the original creditor who you had the loan with or the debt with, they sold it now to a debt collector. And that debt collector, in order for them to collect that debt, there's a certain protocol that they have to follow. And if they don't follow that protocol, and if they can't validate the debt, then legally they can't collect that debt from you. I don't care if you owed $100,000 for a loan. Again, make sure you know your rights. Take this information down because it's definitely going to help you. What you should not do. This is very important. Don't acknowledge you owe the debt. Don't make any partial payments, because once you make a partial payment on that debt, now you've admitted to the debt. That's like getting arrested and making a statement to the police and then trying to retract that statement. It's kind of difficult to do that. So don't make any partial payments on the debt. Don't give them any of your banking or checking account information. Don't do that. It's very, very important that you don't do that, because once they have that information, they can use it at will. Don't fall for the limited time offer trick. This is a trick that they play with everybody. So let's say the phone rings, debt collector calls you, and they say, hey, listen, you owe $3,000, but today we'll take $500. You have to the end of the day. So what do? Like, wow, okay. I owe $3,000. They're willing to take $500. If I can give them $100 towards that $500 today, then they're willing to take that. This is a big discount. Let me give them some money. Don't. Again, they prey on consumers not understanding what their rights are. You legally may not even be obligated to pay them anything. So if they can't validate the debt, I don't care if they say you owe $300,000. You're not obligated to pay it. Again, if you don't exercise your rights, then they'll walk all over you. Know what your rights are. Don't fall for the limited time offer trick. Tell them, hey, listen, give me the information and I'll get back with you. I don't care if they're giving you the sweetest offer and they say, hey, listen, we'll take $25 and you owe us $25,000. Don't fall for that trick. You want them to be able to validate the debt. I had a client, just a quick story. I had a client who called me and she said that a debt collector actually showed up to her house and said that she owed for a medical bill. But at the end of the day, we found out that the debt collector, it was illegal what they were doing, and it was a scam actually. So again, too, you have people who are scam artists out here who may call you and get your information and say that you owe a debt. Don't fall for that. You want them to be able to validate the debt. There's certain information that they have to provide you. And if a debt collector calls you at work, tell them you can't receive calls at work. what you want to do is send the request in writing, certified mail. You want to send that to them so that way you know that they received it. And if they violate your request, keep detailed notes when they call, the time, the date, and what they said. Record the phone calls if you can. And I'm going to tell you why it's important to keep a log of this information. And also, too, you want to speak to an FDCPA attorney. Give them your notes to use in court. And I'm going to tell you the purpose of that because you want to have everything documented. Again, remember earlier I told you that you can sue if the debt collector is harassing you and they don't comply and they don't give you proper debt validation, but they're still continuing to call you. If they do this, then you can hire an attorney. Most FDCPA attorneys, you don't have to pay them any money up front. I've referred a lot of my clients to an FDCPA attorney that we use, and the clients don't have to pay anything up front, and they will take the case if they feel like you have a case. And in most cases, you will have a case. And then whatever monies they win for you, they keep a percentage of the money. They get paid on the back end. So again, it's a great way for you to sue the debt collector. You can turn the tables on them and you can actually win. There's also sometimes where they say, listen, instead of us paying out, we'd rather forgive the debt. So you're in a situation where you're calling the shots now because the attorney has caught them in illegal practices or violations, and again, now you have them backed into a corner. So utilize this information. Again, you can sue them if they're not complying. Stop debt collectors from calling you. What do you need to do? You need to send them a cease and desist letter. You need to send that to them. Remind them that the FDCPA requires them to honor your requests, and let them know that you know your rights and what your rights are. And tell them you'll keep records of all communications. When you tell them that, they are going to be on their P's and Q's, and they are going to pretty much be walking on eggshells, because then they know that they're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about and that you're knowledgeable and that you're not scared. When they sense fear, they understand that they've got you. And when they know that you're fearful and you don't know your rights, they're going to walk all over you. So it's important that you keep this information and utilize it. And once the debt collector receives your letter, they can only contact you by mail to notify you of any action they're taking. Okay, so this is important. You don't want to cease all communications. You just want to, in the cease and desist letter, and I'm going to make a copy of a cease and desist letter available for you to use. You do not want to stop all communications because, and I'll tell you why, you want them to be able to contact you by mail. And the reason why is because if they decide they want to sue you or take action, you want to be able to know that they're going to sue you, so you'll know how to respond. But because if you tell them to cease all communication, phone, mail, and any other form of communication, then you're not going to know when they sue you, and they're just going to comply with the letter that you sent them. So you want to cease and desist all phone call communication. And you want to contact. You want them to contact you to tell you they're no longer pursuing collection. That's the only form of contact that you want them to have, and you'll put that and state that in the letter. If they ignore your cease and desist letter, don't answer if they call. Let them leave a message and then save it. So they're supposed to comply with that letter. Again, you want to document all phone calls, document all logs, take screenshots of every call and save it. And then again, contact an FDCPA, which stands for Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, attorney, and sue. Most of them zero up front. So let's say if they were going to win you $3,000, again, you don't think, hey, I'm going to have a $5 million lawsuit on my hands. No, it could be a couple $1,000s. But if that can excuse you from the debt, and in addition to that, turn the tables on the debt collector, it's a win-win situation for you. If your lawyer decides you have a case, you can collect including stationary damages up to $1,000. You can collect for attorney's fees, and you can also collect for damages for emotional distress. Because again, we already know debt can be something that's very stressful. In addition to someone calling you all times of the day, harassing you, it can be a very, very stressful situation. It's a silent killer for a lot of people. No one likes to be in debt. And you can also get medical expenses to treat the distress, reimbursement for any unlawful taking of your property. So let's say if it was a car that was taken from you illegally, a home, or anything that they physically took from you, you can get reimbursement for it as well. Applying what you learned. Applying what you learned, or what we're going over in this video, it's very important. It can save you from paying thousands in debt that a debt collector is attempting to collect illegally. It can save you, just help you relieve the pressure from stress caused by profit-driven collection companies. Most of these collection companies are out for profit. They just want to be paid. They want money. They're not expecting consumers to understand and know what their rights are. So let's say they purchase $5 million in debt, and 5% of those consumers know what their rights are, and they can't collect from 5%. At the end of the day, they don't care about that. They'll just worry about the 95% that they can collect from, because it's still a win-win situation for them. Most of these companies buy debt for pennies on the dollar. So debt collection is a very, very profitable business. But you want to make sure that you don't just sit on this information, apply it. If you either use it or you lose it. So you want to make sure that you take heed to everything that you're learning in this video. So for more helpful tips, you can subscribe to this channel. Share this information. Again, share it on your social media pages. Share it with family members. I'm here to help. We're constantly putting out new videos. This information has helped a lot of my clients. Our clients, we typically deal with this information for them. But again, I'm not here to just help people who are my clients. I'm here to help the general public. We're constantly putting out new videos, new information to give you helpful tips on how to repair your credit, how to build your credit, increase your credit score, and how to protect your credit, and just educate you on credit in general, because there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing you can do without credit. You cannot rent a decent apartment. You can't purchase a home. If you get a car, you're going to have to put down a large down payment. You're going to pay a ridiculous interest rate. So you want to make sure that you protect your credit, understand the importance of your credit. And again, I'm asking you to share this information, like this video, and I thank you for watching.